Happy Saturday, you guys, and welcome to the call 3 of the Regenerative Neighborhood Framework call series, a journey to come together as a community of community creators, share the things that are important to us in the design, development, building, and operating of a regenerative neighborhood. Living spaces that have resilient resource systems for water, food, energy, waste, and specifically human connection, how we relate with ourselves, with each other, and with the planet. We will be accepting some more people into the call, so don't mind the pauses there as more people join. This week's topic is ecology. What that means in this journey, what that is in general, and we'll be exploring, because this is our first category-based call where we're really drilling down on one topic. We will be going through the subcategories that have been presented, both from different research channels, from our work as Regen Tribe, and from Chimera and the Masterminding Eden journey of creating agreed upon categories to kickstart this skeleton we're building of a framework. Let me share the link here for the Notion, for the Miro board. Here it is. Let me share it again. 1 second. I'm going to do a short summary of what we're doing here all together for anyone that's new, and for the recording, so it's on the video when it gets shared. And then we'll jump right into it, to getting to know each other a little bit more. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, here we are. Great. All right, so this is the mighty Miro board. It's serving us well. Lots of people have been joining so far. As you can see, it's set out with the intros up here. Call 1, which we did before, call 2, which we did last week, and now call 3, where we're really jumping into the topic of ecology. Just a short intro here. This framework series, here's our main graphic, is an initiative to gather resources, gather the amazing humans on their journey to redevelop society, to design living systems and physical locations that are good for individuals, good for the collective, and good for the planet. We'll have a call every week, as you can see here. Going through the last 2 weeks, we explored what is a framework, how does a framework come together and serve us, and we've outlined the core categories of what a framework to design a regenerative neighborhood should be: ecology, hardware, human systems, economy, and software. So the big why of why we're doing this is, of course, to connect with the community through these calls and through physical experiences later on, to gather resources from everyone in the community, and to create an open source and crowdsourced framework that will be stuck together with a smart dynamic documentation set. In the next couple of days, today I think we can check in on this. In addition to this weekly call, I find it exciting to start hosting also an AI-powered focused call, an AI-focused call, where we will be doing the heavy lifting of putting the documents into our dynamic documentation set and making it a useful tool for anyone involved. As you can see here, these are the categories we just discussed. Ecology at the heart of the endeavor. Nature guides us, nature leads our design, and it is our first core category that we will be exploring this Saturday and the following Saturday. Following that, we will go to hardware, human systems, economy, and our last 2 calls, last 2 weeks, will be software, the tools that tie all of that together. These are screenshots of the Tribes platform that you can go and explore and start uploading your content on. This week, we're going to leave a couple of minutes after we do our group intros to each other, where each user will be guided to the Tribes platform to make sure you have your profile on the platform, a couple of points about yourself, and ideally uploading a picture. As we prepare this framework, everyone involved here will have a level of recognition for participating, for the things that they have contributed to the journey. And in the long, big picture, our goal is to use this framework to build a actual project plan for a physical regenerative neighborhood that we will promote and grow a community of buyers for to actually build this physical location. I was presented with a question of how are people being compensated for their participation? Currently, we're a DIY community, do it yourself. All of us are working on our own projects, doing our own research, and really looking for each other to support this journey of growth and learning. One reward that comes to mind right away is everyone participating on these calls, once that physical land project comes to fruition, will be invited to a kind of early adopter price point. None of that is set yet, but this is where we're going with this journey. So keep that in mind. And if anyone has ideas on how to structure that, we'll definitely be exploring that in future conversations. All right. So let's get to it. Let's get over here to call 3. I'm going to invite you guys all to follow my screen where we are. We're joining here on call 3. I'm going to do the thing where I bring everyone over to my screen. 1 second. I have to let a few people into the call. Here we go. Vivo, hello. Okay, welcome, welcome, new participants. All right, let's make sure everyone's in the call. Yes, everybody's here. Okay, cool. So I'm going back to the Miro board. And I'm going to be bringing everyone over here to me. 1 second. I'm struggling right now with my chat window. I don't know how to move it. This is so annoying right now. 1 second, you guys. There it is. Okay, cool. Oh, that's really obnoxious. Okay, sure. All right, so I'm going to bring everyone over to my view. Everyone jump on the Miro board. The link is in, there we go. Everyone's here now. Sorry if I just moved you over to a new spot. The link is in the chat if anyone would like to jump onto the Miro board for all the new participants. Boom, I've just dropped the link in there. Okay, great. All right, so ecology. In one sentence, pulling things up, the relationship between living organisms and their physical environment. We're going to go through a series of questions. The purpose of these calls is to explore as a group, understand this topic deeply, and share specifics about our experiences that lead to us needing certain questions answered so that we can design systems and find solutions to compile into this framework. So a short welcome. My name is Oscar. I am a regenerative enthusiast, a systems engineer by training, and an entrepreneur through life. The last 4 years, I've been working to grow a collective called Regen Tribe. Our vision is to create a network of regenerative neighborhoods around the world, and not by us building them, but by providing the tools so that people around the world have the resources, network, and also tools that they need to design, build, and operate these locations. We're going to do a short term of meet and greets with everyone in a couple of minutes. This call series was really catalyzed by the initiative of Chimera, and the Masterminding Eden project. Very similar, very aligned initiative to gather resources, compile a framework, and give people the tools and knowledge they need to design regenerative futures, regenerative societies, and regenerative neighborhoods. All right, so let's see who's in this group right now. Let me jump into the chat. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Hello, everybody. Let me let some people in. All right, let me see. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, there's like 6 of us here. So,
It's like 13 people.
Okay, Matt Powers, Yabi Baba is also happening now. Okay, so there's like something else happening. Thank you for telling us, Martin. That's cool. Hold on, there's some people here joining. Let me add them. Annabelle, welcome. Great, Lori, welcome. I think Lori's in. Annabelle, welcome, welcome. Landowner in Portugal, excited to design and build her community. Okay, cool. So it's kind of a small group of us participating. I would like to, I think we'll just keep it in one group. Maybe let's all do a round of intros right in here. On the Miro board, these are the questions. I'm sharing my screen. What led you to this call? What are you excited about today? Have you lived in a community before? And what is your location? I'm going to make some time here. I'm going to run the timer. Let me start this timer. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so everyone gets some time here. Boom. All right. Yeah, let's do a little intro. Round of, Vivo, I'd love for you to share first. Welcome to the call. I'm happy you're here.
Let me know if you can hear me okay, because my headphones are kind of shitty.
Yeah, audio is
Sounds all
perfect.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Hello, my name is Vivo. I've met Oscar and Sonia in Berlin some years ago and have been enthusiastically following the work. So but not in the same place as Regen Tribe is an open collective. And so what led me to this call is to reconnect, see what's up, see how this call series is going, because I knew it was going on, couldn't make the time. Da, 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 da. I currently find myself in Mexico in a small beach town on the Pacific coast. And I moved here with a friend that I worked with last year in Colombia, where you guys are right now, and we're looking to bring regenerative systems to the communal level here. There's already a lot of stuff going on, so we're just here to participate and ground in and really root in a place. Yep. I
Nice.
think that's,
Okay.
does that
Thank you
answer
for
the
sharing.
questions? Yep.
Yeah. Justin, welcome. We're just doing a little intro. Where are
Love it.
you?
Yeah.
Have you lived in community? What are you excited about this call?
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Yeah. I'm in Nicaragua. I've been here for 6 years. I've been called to build community for about 7 or 8 years. And I'm actively manifesting that. So I've spent several years interviewing probably over 100 people that want to live in regenerative community and asking them what they want. And I've had experience trying to do community here in Nicaragua and had some challenges in the first round, and I'm back at it and pulling it all together. So I'm looking at a piece of property on Ometepe Island right now. It's about 70 or so acres and beachfront, and kind of formalizing. I submitted a deck to the group, so it's there if you want to see it. El Regalo, with the concept, the core concept of what I'm trying to accomplish. But yeah.
Oh, where did you share this?
In the WhatsApp group.
In the WhatsApp group. Which
It's
WhatsApp group?
Yeah, I know, right? Hold on, I'll tell you. It's the
3.0 New Earth.
Yeah, Earth 3.0. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I would love, so Justin, we're we're like, I think coming from a lot of different groups and a lot of different chats. We'll discuss where we're uploading a lot of content, but I'd love to get that
I love the feedback.
presentation
Yeah.
document. Yeah, sure. I'd love to review it. We're gonna go through where we're uploading content on the Tribes platform. I don't know if you have a profile yet, but we're gonna do a round of a few minutes for everyone to onboard themselves. so we can all
Perfect.
see each other's profiles and get to know each other a little deeper.
Got it. Perfect.
Okay,
I,
Lori,
and I think
would
I'm
you like
there.
to?
I think I'm on the retrab. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I'm Lori Fry. I'm living in Enterprise, Alabama right now. I got here through first it was LightNet, and then I got into Masterminding Eden, and I've been to several of those calls. I was here last week, and I have not lived in a community before. I've been researching intentional communities and these regenerative communities for a couple years now, but where I live, it's pretty rural, and I don't know of a lot of other like-minded individuals. But I have about 4 acres of land that I would really love to start and get going on a community. So I'm here to learn. I'm excited about just being here, learning, and doing whatever I can to help. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. Thanks, Lori. Kevin, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Howard, and I have, let's see, I would consider myself a climate justice innovator. I come out of commercial banking, 30-year commercial banking career. Um, um, my focus and what attracts me to this group is I'm a sister. And so as I see we are coming to an end of the era of exploitative, our geopolitics, all the old paradigm is collapsing and we see it collapsing and it's accelerating. But so the whole issue that I think faces that we face is what's going to be the new emerging paradigm. And so my work, my consulting work in climate mitigation is on easing that transition. But the fact is we have to have a vision of where we're going. And so that's what attracted me to Mastermind in Eden. It's what attracted me to Oscar and your project here, right? Because we have to, while there's been some great theory, white paper level work done on that economics of the future, society of the future, we actually need to get down to the business of start designing this. And it will be done on the localized community level. But we need to put some teeth into it. And so that's what attracts me here. I've never lived in a community as such, though I'm very interested, very vested. You know, interestingly enough, on my spiritual journey, my wife and I speak of getting some land and doing a tribe house where you have wings and people have their own spaces and there's a commons and stuff like that. So I think at some deep spiritual level, I was already drawn to what you all are trying to do here. So, but that's what attracts me. And ecology is at the center of that. Ecology is at the center of our climate crisis. Ecology is at the center of our natural resource overshoot problems that we're having in the world today. And so ecology has to be at the center of whatever new communities we develop. That's what's attracted me here today.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, thank you, Sandra. Sandra shared her check-in here. Dealing with a lot of stuff going on there, learning about regenerative techniques into software, data, and email communications. Yeah, welcome, Alessandra. Martin, you want to do a little check-in?
Hi, I'm Martin. I'm currently in Berlin. I came to these calls through Masterminding Eden mostly. And yeah, as I said, I'm a software developer, but very interested in new approaches to farming and housing and stuff like that. And happy to talk about all of that.
Cool. Yeah, welcome, Martin. Thank you for being here. Dr. Brian, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Brian von Herzen here on the hinterlands of the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, Australia. I'm the executive director at the Climate Foundation. In the last decade, we created an intentional community called the Climate House. This was in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, modeled after Shay JJ and Y Combinator. We did C Combinator. We did a number of projects, but today that's evolved into the synthesis of marine permaculture and preserving ecology in the ocean. So we're working with regen communities from Noosa to Narara. For those not from Australia, that's close to Brisbane, close to Sydney, 1,000 kilometers with more than half a dozen regenerative communities. And we're working to bring stellar technology to those communities. The objective is to achieve the end of extraction. And that is we are within 10 years of moving beyond extraction, moving to abundant energy, abundant food, and abundant labor for regenerative communities around the world. Our goal is to build that DNA that will enable 1,000 points of light, 1,000 communities around the world to shine, and ultimately get us beyond extraction. So I'm thrilled to be here, thrilled to be working on regenerative ecology on land and sea, and thrilled to meet you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the check-in. Welcome back. Thank you for joining early morning in Australia.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Eric, go ahead. Welcome. Nice to see you again. You're on mute. You're on mute.
There you go. Hello, everyone. Eric from Maryland, and I'm just here for just checking it out, support the whole thing. So
yeah, Eric's already shared a bunch of good resources. Every call you've like shared some gold. We had an awesome conversation last week. We like stayed for almost 2 hours after discussing the LLM journey and that whole process. So nice. It's nice to see all the faces again. Thomas, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm Thomas Potter from Switzerland. I'm a successful AI, IT, and now quantum cybersecurity entrepreneur. And I'm reinvesting some of the money into regenerative projects, especially heavy survivalist projects. We bought some land in Mongolia and plan to buy some land in the Andes in South America. And we have proposed a concept called potentialism and a capitalism upgrade to set the right incentives for society. And we are trying to also try out these rules in our self-sufficient communities. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Welcome, Thomas. Phil, welcome. Happy to have you on the call.
Hey, brother. It's nice to see a lot of aligned faces here. Yeah, I was an entrepreneur before as well, like many of you, and kind of fell down this rabbit hole after listening to a Daniel Schmachtenberger podcast talking about game A extractive dynamics versus, trying to build a more collaborative game B. So I spent a lot of time working on various projects with Daniel and other people in the space, specifically looking at culture and governance design, and yeah, now consult for a lot of different communities, and one of the big projects is actually for the Australian is building a community in Tasmania. So yeah, excited to be here with you all.
Nice. Okay, Chimera, would you like to do a little intro?
Hello, I'm Chimera Casson. I'm an environmental science technologist and entrepreneur. I'm a mother and I'm a farmer. And I started this little thing called Masterminding Eden, where I was trying to bring together people for a month from all these different walks of life and expertise to create a design for a self-sustaining, regenerative, weather resilient community for 10,000 people. And doing an in-person event per month just turned out to be more difficult than I imagined. People were not able to take the time or the money to attend. So we are doing our best to bring it together online for now, find some funding and try again. But we're not going to give up. So I think it's incredibly important that we, with the way that we live on Earth, especially the way we, like our shelter, the way we produce food and energy in our own homes, where we live, is what can really shift the whole world. So that's what I'm all into, is creating either small and large self-sustaining systems that are good for people and good for the planet.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Beautifully said. Yeah, thank you, Chimera, for holding this fire. This is all of the above, love, especially knowledge, as we all are. Sonia, you want to do a little check-in?
Hello, everybody.
Oh, 1 second.
My name is Sonia. Okay. My name is Sonia. I have a degree in logistics engineering, and as I finished my studies, I decided to travel the world and explore different cultures and different movements, and that got me into community land developments. I met this beautiful gentleman over here and a couple of other very inspiring, interesting people, and pretty much all my professional career has been committed to researching and visiting these types of projects and then synthesizing all of that knowledge and goodness that people have been collecting for decades now into something tangible that other people can use. I have lived in various community projects, from co-living houses to intentional communities, from 5 to 150 people, different pop-up cities. So it's been a really incredible and interesting journey. I am excited and happy to be here. I feel very, very hopeful. As daunting as it is, I see that a lot of you guys and many other people around the world are coming together because we are facing a lot of challenges on a political level, on a societal level. So I think there's a lot of hope right now. I'm seeing a lot of different blogs and YouTube channels and projects popping up because what's happening around the world is not okay. So yeah, happy to be here, happy to connect with people that have been working in that space or are just interested in that space and exploring and yeah, forming long-term relationships, collaborations, and just seeing what kind of resources we come up with together and then making something, yeah, tangible for other people to benefit from. So happy to be here.
Okay, you guys. So without further ado, as you can see in my photo, today's topic is ecology, the heart of the endeavor. Everything that we are doing in this regenerative space is, in my understanding now, best modeled after nature in all of the ways. Biophilic because we love it, biomimicry because it is the best example that we have. I'm going to share my screen. I invite you guys all to jump directly on the Miro board if you want to be active on the call and in the workspace. If you'd like to just follow along, feel free to follow my screen. I'll be kind of following through all the areas. Again, a high-level view of the Miro board. Up here is the intro and a little walkthrough. As you move down, you can see call 1 if you want to go back and explore what we did. Call 2, the same. Gathering of people's knowledge. All of this data is slowly being uploaded to a dynamic documentation set, which we will discuss closer to the end of the call. And here we are on call 3, ecology. The shortest summary I've gathered so far is ecology is the relationship between living organisms and their physical environment. We are going to explore that a lot more. We've now done our short group intros. And over here is going to be the workspace that we are going to explore. We're going to do a lightning round of words based on these subcategories that we have identified between Chimera, myself, and other thought leaders in the space that have been researching this and putting together work. Before we jump into that, I'd like you guys to realize and notice that if you click this link, it takes you to the specific group in the Tribes platform where these conversations are taking place and where these resources are being uploaded. Jeff, where you were discussing your land project, I'd invite you to share that land project here on the Tribes platform. You can upload your neighborhood and answer some questions, or feel free to drop it in just as a post on your profile so other people can come in and look at it. This is a new profile that I'm using here. I'm going to go back to the Miro board. So my request to everyone is take a moment and go onto the Tribes platform. If you don't have a profile yet, you have a link here for it? Well, you can click here, the Hive. If you don't have this yet, I'm going to bring everyone over to my screen. Boom, I'm bringing you guys over here. Right here, this little check sign, feel free to click that. It'll bring you to the Tribes platform. I'm going to give it like 2 minutes. Go ahead and log in. create a profile. I'm going to log out of this generic user, and I'm going to log in with my account. Yeah, you can preview without login, but I invite you all to create your profiles. Just like we all just saw each other quickly, you'll be able to go to the Masterminding Eden group, which is the second request once you create your profile, and join the Masterminding Eden group, where you can see the other members of this mission that we're on currently. You'll be able to see everything that they've shared in their bios. Thank you, Vivo, for joining. Catherine was here last week. Lori, I see you in there. Eric, Kevin, you can jump in there. You can see people's profiles. You can read their bios. You can see their requests, offers, what their magic is in this life. It's a way for us to gather information. You can also share about your dream community, size of the community, values that are specific to you, amenities. This is an initiative to be able to make suggestions to individuals of land projects that could be very interesting for them, and vice versa. Land projects can explore community members, because this is one of the biggest requests that we have explored as consultants in the space, working with land projects around the world. People starting communities are always looking for community members that align with the vision. So I'm going to leave 1 minute here, 2 minutes for you guys to log in there, create your profile, and then join the, let me see, I'll show you here. I'm going to share this tab. And while you're on here, while you're on the Tribes platform, once you create your profile, you'll come here to the main landing page, which is kind of a feed of all of the activity happening on the platform. You can see new members. You can see members on the platform. You can see connections you have, events, and people that are currently online. So I see you guys on there. Cool. Thank you for being here. And here is where in the Hive, you can explore the categories that we are actively working on for this framework. The image of how we organize these 5 key categories. And this week, we kick off with the first one, ecology. So here is a snapshot of what we're doing on the Miro board, which I'm going back to now. The Tribes platform is where we are gathering resources for the last almost 2 years now. With all these new members, we're getting new uploads every day. On the Miro board, we're doing more in-the-moment exercises, capturing more theoretical and abstract thoughts. And we will be feeding all of this to an LLM in future steps to create more actionable data that we'll upload into the framework. So I'm back on the Miro board. I invite you guys all to head there. I'm going to bring you all to my screen, which is the blown out view of ecology and the subcategories that are included. Totally not comprehensive. If anyone can think of any other major categories, we are actively adding groups and expanding the scope to make sure we get all of the key spaces for information. This first activity we're going to do is a lightning round. Don't think too much about things, but come from your emotional base of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 subcategories in the ecology category. Any word or phrase or emotion that comes to mind when you think of climate or biodiversity or impact monitoring and metrics or ecosystem restoration, landscape natural resources, ecology, wisdom, and science, or land stewardship. I'm going to set a timer for another 5 minutes. I'm just going to do this timer one more time. All right, we have the timer going. I invite you guys all to look at these subcategories and share any, again, words, thoughts, maybe projects, anything that comes to mind. Don't be too critical of yourself. The idea is to get the ball rolling and get us comfortable. You can take a little Post-it here and drag this over here to, example, landscape natural restoration, and I'm going to share something. I invite you guys all to start dropping things in here, explore the topics, and we'll talk in a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to share. Someone's dropping in a bunch of YouTube videos, excellent content. I would love if you could put a little label on them. That might be a bit more work.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm doing right now. I have to
okay,
hop
awesome.
from like the YouTube app, write down the title, and then
Sure.
type it
It'll
in.
make it. It'll definitely make it easier for us as we start processing all this data to have a label and be able to kind of kick that journey off.
I wasn't able to watch all of them before the week ended, so
That's okay. Just a category or like
I've
the
seen them.
title of the video would be super helpful. I'm surprised it doesn't put that automatically, but yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one thing I wanted to bring up about the Tribes platform app. I have a difficulty posting up any kind of links on it.
Really?
It's an IT thing, yeah, from the mobile app because I only use mobile.
No, I'm gonna
So
try to these things.
I
On the
actually
Tribes.
used to have that a long time ago, even on the desktop. Yeah.
That's funny. I'll check that out, Eric. Maybe after the call we can do like a little one-on-one, and I can go through it. Let me check mobile. Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for that heads up. I'm gonna check that out right now. All right, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You guys keep adding, emotions, thoughts, anything that comes to mind when you explore these 7 categories throughout the rest of the call. We are going to dive into each one of those categories and essentially the structure of making mini frameworks for each one of these topics. We have about 2 minutes left. Let's see. You're saying you can't post links. Weird.
Used to happen in the past.
Huh?
Used to happen in the past.
Yes. What's fine for me? That's weird. Mm. All right, 50 seconds, you guys. 50 seconds. I'm going to start reading out a few of these. In climate, we got beyond extraction, water, climate GHG emissions management. Yes, Titanic oceans. Cool. Some video links. Very nice. Very nice. Is part of climate change propaganda. Okay. In biodiversity, we got pollinators, bees, diversity in all its forms, predator-prey relationships, resource versus labor efficiency. Cool. In impact monitoring, we got people greater than machines, MRV cost management, assembly theory, relatively quick and regular updates. Yep. Good. Ecosystem restoration. All right. So I'm just reading a few of the things that were dropped in here. Ecosystem restoration. What once was might not be again. Very true. Sahara Great Green Wall. Cool. Link to the YouTube video. Water cycle management definitely is critical to regenerative agriculture and nature-based solutions. Yeah, to everything. Regeneration, complementing restoration. Yeah. Landscape and natural resources. Syntropic agroforestry, I put that one. Water flow, slow it down and spread it out. Definitely. Flood control. Yep. Yeah. Right. Swales. Controlling water is so key on the land. Ecological wisdom and science. Lots of videos. Awesome. Excited to check some of those out. Indigenous wisdom, complementing tech and science. Definitely. The tribal oil pipeline resistance. Yeah. Definitely one of those conflicting moments. In land stewardship, we have ownership versus stewardship models, making sure the soil for farming is not destroyed by crop, but nutrient regenerate. Yep. Zoning precludes stewardship. Yes. Public land trusts, cooperative land trusts, churches. Yep. Yeah, right. All strategies, land tenure, and succession in community. Cool. All right. So that was the lightning round. Just a quick moment to drop a bunch of thoughts about each one of these categories. We're going to go into these subcategories in depth throughout the rest of the call. Let me make sure no one's like in the waiting room. I think Vic is there. Sorry, Vic. Took me a minute. Hey, Vic. Welcome, welcome. Sorry that took me a minute to let you in. Yeah, welcome. So we're on the Miro board. If you want to jump over there, I'm going back over there. I'm continuing to share my screen. We just did a lightning round for the subcategories that are in the ecology macro category. I'd love for this definition of ecology. Would someone like to read this out loud? Because right after, we're going to do a more personal couple of minutes on what is ecology to you at a high level. So does anyone want to read this out loud?
I can do it.
Go ahead. Hit it.
Ecology is the scientific study of the relationships between living organisms like plants, animals, microbes, and their physical environment, including both biotic, living, and abiotic, non-living factors, focusing on how these interactions affect the distribution and abundance of life and the functioning of ecosystems.
Okay, so that was a summarized and processed answer from a couple of LLMs. I would love each of you, I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes. I would love each of you to share what ecology means to you, as this is going to be kind of the jumping off point before we dive into the subcategories. I'm going to set this timer, and I'd love for you guys each to share at least one sticky note or more on what ecology means to you, with the reference of building physical locations, regenerative neighborhoods, right? This is the framework goal. Yeah, we're kind of in that. Let me add that.
Many of us need the Miro link in the
Oh,
chat.
okay. Let me drop that again. Yeah, sure. Thank you for sharing. Cool. Let me drop this link here. 1 second. Here it is. Copy. All right, you guys. Thank you for asking. Always, you guys feel free to jump in and share whenever you need stuff. I've just shared the Miro link at the bottom of the chat here in the Zoom. Oh yeah, there is no planet B, a way of relating and belonging. Beautiful. Yeah, keep it going, you guys. All right, you guys, about 30 seconds. And 2 seconds, 2 seconds. Nice. All right. So yeah, get your last ones in there. All right, a few of the ones on here. Ecology is the symbiotic relationship of living species and the natural environment within a localized bioregion. Yeah. Sustainable ecology means moving beyond extraction. Definitely how microcosms affect the macrocosms. Yep. A way of relating and belonging. What does it teach me and how do I understand it? The current situation, environment you are in, and how comfortable, happy it makes you or the community. Yeah, very cool. So it's beautiful to gather this information in this way. I'm really excited to see how each one of these data points will be processed and uh, turned into something by different LLMs, which will be the next step in the journey of gathering all this information. So thank you guys for sharing all of this stuff. There is no planet B. Life turns sunlight into diverse information. Yeah, right. Sunlight. We're all just sunlight. Animals, planets, humans, land and soil, and how they all interrelate. Diverse ecosystems are more resilient. Beautiful. Okay, cool. So yes, this is the high level context of ecology in all its ways, from the textbook, process definition of the relationship between living organisms and their physical environment, to the more emotional descriptions coming from each of us. Very cool. All right. Does anyone have any questions? We're going to set the timer for a 1-minute bio break. We're like halfway through the call right now. It's about 3:49 right now, and we're going to be on here till about 4:30. So I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute. If anyone has any questions, feel free to share them. I'm going to be here. I'm just going to stand and stretch for a second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I invite you all to bio break, stand up, shake it off for a second, as we're going to dive into each of the subcategories in a second. Today, if I'm stretching yesterday. You're gonna put music on. Get everyone pumped up. Ah, yeah. Okay. We're back. We're back. We're back. Right. Hey, Jerry, I missed you in here. Are you in there? Jerry, you want to do a little intro? I don't know if you're around. Your mic's on. And Vic, you want to do a little intro? If you're around, you came in a little bit late.
I'm good. We'll stay with the flow.
Okay, cool. All right. All right, so I'm going to go back to the Miro board. I'm going to share my screen one more time for the recording and for others that will be joining. Chrome tab, boom. All right, sure. All right, so now that we've kind of discussed at a high level ecology and what it is, what is important to us in that aspect, we're going to be guided by these subcategories that we've identified that compose in the most holistic way that we can imagine right now ecology. These subcategories are climate, which I recently understood the difference deeply between climate and weather. We'll go into that in a second. Biodiversity, impact monitoring and metrics, ecosystem restoration, landscape and natural resources, ecological wisdom and science, and land stewardship. We did that lightning round a few minutes ago where we shared a word that came to mind when we discussed all of this. So right now we're going to focus on climate. Climate is weather over time, in decades versus weather happens in days and hours. And weather refers to the state of the Earth's atmosphere at a specific place and time, and described by temperature, humidity, cloud cover, and stability. That's from Wikipedia. If anyone has a better definition, I invite you to pull it up and share it right next to this. guided by our previous call, where we defined what is a framework, what actually is needed to say that we're creating a framework. The summary of that was that a framework helps define the purpose of something, the metrics of measuring and success of that thing, the categories to help organize it, and the process that we follow to embody or activate that topic. So in this first call of a macro category, we're experimenting on how to use the framework modality or structure for each of the subcategories. And we're going to see how this goes. The topic of ecology is huge, all encompassing. And this is one way that we, have gone back and forth with others to see how we can explore this. So in our first session, I'm going to give, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 categories here. Let's start with the first one, purpose. You guys can see the other ones here, right? The main questions are under it. Purpose. Why is it important to understand climate in the context of developing a regenerative neighborhood? Remember, there is no right answer here. The beauty of these large language models is that we'll be able to dump all of this content into specific prompts and retrieve and summarize it into what we hope to be useful topics that will help lead the design later on. So all of us here are essentially helping create a brain that will be able to give us guidance in the design of a community later on. So I invite you all here to answer this first question. I'm just going to leave 1 minute. We're going to blast through these so we have some time for reflection at the end. Why is it important to understand climate? Also, let's include weather in there. Climate and weather, they're like pretty adjoining. Climate/weather. In the context of developing a regenerative neighborhood. Sure, water cycles are more important than climate. Yep. Cool. I'm going to add a sticky note here. Cool, just 11 seconds left. Very cool. I want to see how we're feeling on time. I don't know if it's better that we do like 1 or 2 minutes per box, or if I do like a 5-minute block and everyone gets to explore all of the sections within one. I just saw how that went. I'm going to set the timer now for 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes. And in these 4 minutes, I invite you to look at the other categories, which is metrics of success. How do we track our process to integrate climate into a regenerative neighborhood development? What are other domains that we should consider in the climate and weather category? So a subcategory within this subcategory, and the process. How do we implement climate aware decisions into regenerative neighborhood development? If anyone has anything they'd like to share on any one of these topics, I would invite you to raise your hand, and I would love some feedback here. I would love engagement from the participants to share something maybe they have specific knowledge or experience about, and that they would like to help guide some of these questions or lead some of these thought processes of the other participants. So feel free to raise your hand if you want to share something. I'm going to run this timer here on the board for the 3 minutes. Here, 1, 2, 3. 4 minutes. Okay, cool. Boom. Timer's going. All right, so we have 4 minutes. Go ahead and explore again in the category of climate and weather. These 4 key components of establishing a framework. Essentially, our macro framework for a regenerative neighborhood will be a framework of micro frameworks of climate and all of these subcategories. So go ahead and share. We're going to see how this flows. Again, if you have anything to contribute to any of these guiding questions or this specific subtopic, please raise your hand. We would all love to hear from you. Also feel free to share on their to-dos, things that we need. Maybe you don't know the answer, but we need something to help answer that question. As an example, in the processes section, I'm saying that we need a checklist to help guide the process. Okay, we have about a minute, 30 seconds.
I'd be happy to share something that may be insightful on this.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Brian. Would love to hear.
Oscar, we divide climate solutions into what we call a climate triad, and that is emissions to zero, 2,400 gigatons of carbon removal, and climate repair. And it's helpful to think about approaches in those three contexts, which seem to be essential to sustaining communities around the world.
Okay, can you read those one more? Did you add these somewhere or did you write that down somewhere?
It's under processes. Emissions to zero is all about getting to renewable energy and other approaches, also managing our transportation emissions.
Sure.
It will take, and we've emitted close to 2,400 gigatons of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. And so that's how much we're going to have to remove over time. And that's where drawdown comes in. And climate repair is going to be essential to rebrighten our planet and to enable local communities to continue to produce food and to thrive during difficult climate decades to come. And so while we're getting our carbon budget back into balance, climate repair locally and regionally is going to be increasingly important. nature cools herself by clouds like the ones just behind me right now, and rebrightening those clouds and restoring their extent, duration, and brightness is going to be essential to having healthy communities around the world. And that can be done especially along coastlines, but even inland with biogenic aerosols, tree forests, kelp forests, etc., and other forms of regeneration.
Okay,
I just wanted
yes.
to provide that framing that can be generalized to some extent, but we see those three legs of the triad as being really important.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's great, Dr. Brian. Yeah, this is like definitely the goal is to tap into this collective knowledge. Some have more than others. At the very least, we all have the ability to go. I just jumped out, did a little search, asked a few questions in my prompt, and came back with like a reasonable answer. This is kind of the research step that everyone is now participating in. And the beautiful thing is it comes with the lens of each of us have unique priorities based on our journeys and experiences. And through those lenses, we get a more hopefully holistic view to make sure we have those questions, gather that research, and be able to form this framework. So wonderful. Again, why there's no right or wrong answers. All of this is experience-based, and we're asking the right questions for each of us.
Yeah.
And that's what a
That's
community
great.
is. Yeah, very cool.
One thing I wanted to mention is that we're looking to raise funds to build a climate repair fund that would solicit proposals or request for proposals from communities around the world to actually help lead the way on demonstrating the effectiveness of local and transparent climate repair. And this is rather radical, and yet it's what we believe is a necessary next step, if you will, to sustaining healthy climate during times of climate disruption.
Sure. Yeah, right. Everyone, like we all are affected by climate, so super key.
Yeah.
Actually, I just wanted to highlight I'm pleasantly surprised by the benefits of seeing everyone's profiles on the Tribes platform. I just came across this term talking about climate of the biotic pump theory. You don't know what it is. It's quite interesting. I'm like currently in the mountains of Colombia facing a jungle. And it's the concept that jungles, because of their evaporation and their transpiration, create a suction of air towards the jungle from nearby ocean evaporation and essentially bring moisture to the land, which I find to be super amazing. And so feel free to share all that kind of stuff on your profiles and here on these cards. All right, we're going now. Yeah, what's up? Someone has something to share?
That's like we get sand from the Gobi Desert in China in the Amazon.
Right. Yeah, it's getting pulled in through currents for sure.
Amazing.
It's
all right,
also
yeah, go ahead.
worth mentioning that those forests around you are actually holding a much higher water holding capacity than if the forests were not present there. And they also produce aerosols that are key to producing afternoon clouds and rain for those mountain regions. And the same happens in the sea with kelp forests and small microalgae forests that produce biogenic aerosols that help restore marine stratocumulus cloud brightness. Finally, there's a biotic pump in the ocean, and that is one that fixes carbon and sinks carbon to the deep ocean for 1,000 years. So there's several biotic pumps on land and sea.
Right. The majority of carbon sequestration is happening underwater, if I understand correctly now.
It's about half. Half the carbon fixation on Earth, ocean planet Earth, is in the sea.
In the
and
ocean,
half the oxygen production as well.
Yeah.
But tragically, we are saturating the oceans, and so their absorption rate is declining.
What part is saturating? The temperatures are too high.
No, in terms of the acidification, with carbon, we're saturating.
That's actually a secondary problem. Yeah, at some point that'll start affecting coral reefs. It is affecting some bivalves in the Washington area, for example. But mostly it's about high water temperatures that's actually blocking the macronutrients from the deep to get up to the surface and feed the algae. And so it's the loss of that nutrient cycle that's the most critical part and what we're trying to address with marine permaculture, which has its own Wikipedia page and is also on our Climate Foundation site.
Well, I just asked a lingering question, which for sure requires more research for me, is how does the ocean affect land climate? You shared a few like tidbits, but these will be good prompts that'll go into this, LLM at some point, and will at least lead a breadcrumb trail to ask the right questions.
I'll lead you with one little interesting hint, and that is one of our board of directors has found that sea surface salinity was a better predictor of Midwest rainfall than even El Nino.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's how critical
the salinity. Right. Okay.
So that's an interesting puzzle. I'll be happy to unpack that later. Feel free to ask.
Sure. I'm just dropping it in your sea surface salinity.
Yeah.
Oscar, a part of what I've been focusing on in terms of trying to make climate more relevant to mass populations, right?
Yeah.
Because technicians get lost in the weeds, not lost in the weeds, but we get immersed in the details, right? Sure. But it's these foundational relationships that most people can recognize. So, for example, when you consider climate actually determines the living systems that within the ecology. In other words, as the climate changes, it supports different species. And so as we have warmed the planet since 1850, right, we see that the background rate for extinctions of species on the planet has accelerated. In fact, we're 1,000 times beyond the historical background rate for species. And the amount of species we've lost since 1970 is absolutely catastrophic. So there's a correlation between the climate, there's a correlation between the global average surface temperature, for example, and the life that can be sustained, right? And so, I mean, it is as basic as that. And one of the fundamental simplistic distinctions between the Ice Age and the Holocene was that the global average surface temperature would radically change within a 10-year, 100-year period, go up 5 degrees, down 5 degrees. But for 10,000 years after the Ice Age, right, global average surface temperature of the planet stayed at around 14 degrees Celsius, plus or minus 1 degree Celsius, right? Now that accommodates all the extremes, but that stability of the global average surface temperature for over 10,000 years allowed early, human civilization to use pattern recognition to develop farming in terms of it produced consistent and predictable weather patterns around the planet, right? That allowed us to understand how much precipitation, when we were going to get it. And so we created an innovative farming. So this is what we're destabilizing with warming the planet, is that the weather is becoming unpredictable. And because the weather is becoming unpredictable, the life that it can sustain is changing, which is why we're losing so many species.
Right. The climate definitely dictates what kinds of systems are effective, both in like biological systems, being the creatures, which is biodiversity, which we're going into next, but also what kind of systems us humans need to use for like building materials, right, forms of agriculture, etc. Water capture systems, how much water we need to capture, all of that. Okay, so we're now going over here to our next subcategory. I'm going to bring everyone over here to my section, the screen I'm on. Biodiversity. Biodiversity describes how much life exists, how different that life is, and how it interacts within a system. So, Kevin, you just kind of like kicked us off on that one, talking about extinction and how climate affects extinction. So biodiversity is a good metric, potentially, as I'm thinking of it. I'm going to, again, create a period of time. The questions here are following the same structure as what we just came out of for climate. For biodiversity is, why is it important to understand biodiversity in the context of developing a regenerative neighborhood? A sample answer for me is going to be that biodiversity is a good measure of how we're affecting our area around us. The next one is metrics of success. How do we track our process to integrate biodiversity's best practices into regenerative neighborhood development? Any categories you can imagine that become subcategories or complements to biodiversity. And then process. How do we implement biodiversity aware decisions and best practices into regenerative neighborhood development? I'm going to set the timer here for, I guess, another 4 minutes. That's running. Again, if anyone has anything they'd like to share according to this topic, we'll have some time at the end. Go ahead and raise your hand. For now, dive into this again. No right or wrong answers. It doesn't even have to be answers. It can just be questions. Maybe you have a question or a suggestion on biodiversity in these 4 containers. Go ahead, take a couple minutes, think about it, dive in, see the other things people are sharing, and share what's on your mind.
Systems. Flora, fauna, God, as you could go on and on and on and on.
All right, so I'm checking in on time. It's 4:15 right now here on EST, which leaves about 15 minutes for the remainder of the allotted call of the time for this call. Uh, and I'm realizing we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 topics left. I'm thinking that some of the topics we're going to leave for the next call to make sure that we can keep diving into these details. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share? Maybe a realization they made or something that they want to share with the group concerning biodiversity? Something that you shared here or a question you may have? Something along those lines?
I have one.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
We can only manage what we can measure, and I think the measures of biodiversity are poor at present. And so I've been actually diving into some deep information theoretic approaches to measure biodiversity in general and biodiversity in particular. And there's one by a couple of professors in the UK. One has developed assembly theory, and that's with, I forget the name of the UK professor, but someone like Sarah Walker was key to developing assembly theory, which is considered revolutionary and has not been applied to ecosystem biodiversity yet. So there's a research topic for us all. And the other is Carl Friston's free energy, which is a free energy principle that actually does a pretty good job of measuring biodiversity of ecosystems potentially as well. And so as we develop better and more quantifiable metrics on measures of biodiversity, I think that can get us the beginning of understanding what state were we in, what state are we improving, and could we actually develop biodiversity credits over time that would enable the bringing of resources that would enable communities to thrive from regenerating the biodiversity of their environment and biosphere. Thanks.
Well, that's a good one. Yeah. I'm asking a question here. Are there biodiversity credit programs or businesses?
Yeah, there's Regen Commons. I just met with them yesterday, and that came out of Regen Network. Greg Landua has been pivotal on this, but Regen Commons is actually really interesting, and I just came across it came across my radar yesterday. But
Yes.
it's an open source thing where we're, it looks like they're really working on developing what I would call a protected open source ecosystem where we put all the DNA of ecosystem regeneration into a commons that communities can use around the world to regenerate healthy biomes, microbiomes and biospheres.
If you could get like the get the each of the planet's kingdoms, the six kingdoms of life, like each one of them, like give a token for each. If there's an abundance in one group, it's like that's fancy. I don't know if that's fancy financialization of nature or it's just keeping metrics. Like
It's great to be able to measure these things. And so far, we kind of know it when we see it, when you see a diverse ecosystem. But there's subtle things that are happening, certainly at the microbial level. We have a better ability to see today, especially like shotgun sequencing and all the rest. We can see the microbiome in the soil, on plants, in the ecology. We can increasingly measure the creatures that are on the planet and in a biosphere. And I think we have the tools needed now to develop ecosystem metrics of biodiversity.
Yeah, I'm loving how we're like, at the end of each one of the topics, we're already kind of interluding into the next section, right? Measurement is definitely key in all of these things, both in climate as in biodiversity. The next subcategory is impact monitoring and metrics. So understanding potentially this format of purpose, metrics, categories isn't the best way to explore this topic of impact monitoring and metrics. I'm open to suggestions on maybe in this next 5-minute window, how could we discuss to pull collective understanding questions for what impact monitoring and metrics means, right? In each one of these categories, we have a section of like, how do we measure ourselves? How do we measure this specific thing? This now becomes a little bit of a meta of like, how do we monitor and what are the metrics of our process to monitor and establish metrics for other categories? So I'm going to set a timer here so we can discuss this for the next 5 minutes. This will be the last subtopic that we cover. And that way we leave another 4 topics for the following call, which will be next Saturday, where we're all going to have a bit of homework of like gathering links, resources, PDFs, anything, any projects that you know are out there. Now that you see how we're moving through these subcategories, and the goal next call will be to take some of those resources and share them here and upload them to the Tribes platform. So this is an interesting one for the timer's running now. I'm going to set this timer. Let's discuss impact monitoring and metrics, right? You were just going on that. You were just sharing a bit about that, Dr. Brian, for yes, diversity. Even you were sharing how the level of salinity of the water can dictate and kind of precognition let us know the rain level somewhere. So super interesting.
Yeah.
Let me
Well,
see.
yeah, that's one example. Just to fill in the blank there, it's actually the salinity is a way of measuring the evaporation that's taken place in the sea, because the more evaporation, the higher salinity. And so when there's been more evaporation, it's in the air, it's going to move to the land. And in fact, there's a daily cycle of evaporation and rainfall that occurs from Texas to Oklahoma, up the Midwest, all the way up to the Dakotas. And so there's a nice causal connection that would also work in the rainforests of South America and other regions, and being able to measure that rain in the cycle is really key.
Yeah. Let me see.
Yeah.
All right.
Oscar. Yeah. In terms of, I would say in terms of just for this discussion that I want to start it with a cautionary tale that we need to approach this endeavor with a great deal of humility, in that humanity didn't design sustaining ecological systems. Nature did. And so all we're trying to do is understand it and replicate it. And that the reason why we find ourselves in the meta crisis right now is because we as humans are capable of creating constructs that don't align with nature and create catastrophic impacts, which is where we are now. So not falling into Einstein's warning about using this, solving a problem with the same thinking that created it. I lean heavily towards, the philosophical approach with biomimicry. Why? Because it recognizes that nature knows how it's doing what it's doing. It's us who's trying to replicate it, and the best we can do is replicate what nature did. So, in other words, we need to be very, very careful with how we create constructs in order to create regenerative communities. Because again, we didn't create it in the first place, and so that's my cautionary tale, because what I see in finance, what I see the engineering and the design folks and the quants, they're building new constructs, going down that path. And yeah, it's complex, it's sophisticated, it lends itself to the age of reason. We get so smart, but whether it's true or not is whether or not it actually matches what nature is already doing, in a sustaining way, right? And so that's why I think humility is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I love this quote that is the biggest mistake humanity made was thinking they could design better than nature. And this, I think, embodies what you're sharing right now deeply.
We've proved with mathematics the same error. It's like that, we created mathematics and then we use it to describe the universe. And we try to say that the universe must comply to the rules of our mathematics. No, it doesn't. Our mathematics needs to comply to the rules of the universe if we're trying to describe it, right? If we're trying to explain it.
Right. We still have on hold a talk about the whole Terrence Howard thing. I'm super excited to dive into that with you.
No, it's controversial, but his critique is proper. We have forgotten that we created the math. We didn't create the universe. So what's the baseline for what's true? Our math or the universe itself. So
totally. And sadly, it's become the norm of the scientific community to defend their theories, even if there's a better possibility out there, which is sad.
Learning different methods of measurement, embracing different embracing different methods of measurement and their proofs. So finding as many proofs as possible, learning language, learning mathematics if it's proving that it's universal. If you proving that mathematics is universal, it's like a
See, yeah. Okay, I'm adding to the process. Okay, so that ends the timer there. It's now 4:28, which gives us about 2 minutes till the official end time of this call. We got through these topics. Thank you guys. Also, remember, I am grateful for all of your participation and patience as we are taking lots of very high level and comprehensive topics and trying to smash an exploratory journey of multiple minds with multiple experiences into one session. This is why we at least set 2 sessions for each one of these calls. I would love to direct you guys to the feedback section of each one of the calls. It's at the very end of the calls here. We have a little block for feedback. Also for, do you know any solutions, and suggesting anyone that could support us, that would want to come and present a project or present a solution on the next call. I invite you guys all to please share feedback about these calls, what you're enjoying, what you don't enjoy, what you think would make the call better or progress in a more functional way. Please share. We're excited to gather knowledge, to make the most use of it, and to do it in the best way. So, this is our creative journey collectively. It's a beautiful first collaborative and teamwork effort towards something. Getting to know you guys more and more each call motivates me, to be like, oh, I would love to have a physical location where we can all meet, as in like the Masterminding Eden journey, and eventually a physical location. Dr. Brian, I think we're all going to come to Australia to visit you at some point.
You can see how beautiful it is right behind me. This is my little Garden of Eden, Eden 2.0.
Oh, wow. This is
It's
like
1
real
acre,
view.
and it's a food forest. It was just
Yes.
amazing legacy of the last 20, 25 years, and we're honored to be here.
Yeah, beautiful. I was like seeing the small thumbnail. I was like, oh, that's a nice background he chose. It's the real one. Yeah, beautiful.
Real time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so the feedback section is there. Open to you guys to please drop some more stuff off. We left off on impact monitoring and metrics. On our next call next week, we're going to create time for the remaining 4 sections, which are ecosystem restoration, landscape and natural resources, ecological wisdom and science, and land stewardship. Also, I invite you guys, now that you've gotten a glimpse at each one of these subtopics, if you have any projects, tools, resources, this is another one of the big pushes, both to get each of our thoughts out on this board and to also harvest more links. Feel free to just drop links to projects, even names with anything that you know about them, because we'll be able to plug that in, do some deep research, automated stuff. I feel so much more confident these days of my ability to research, because I feel like I have a whole room of little data researchers in any of my LLMs that I have access to at this point. So anything you guys share here is a hot lead that will help this framework in future steps. Grateful to you guys for this time, all the effort you're sharing, all of your knowledge and wisdom. Keep the links coming, keep the content, right? The more data, the better. At this point, we'll be able to harvest this. I wanted to check in with you guys on how you feel about doing a call maybe on Wednesday, potentially Thursday of next week, where we now focus a bit more on the AI and the smart dynamic documentation solution that we're going to be working on. I invite you guys, maybe if you have an idea of what day would be better. Right now we're doing Saturdays because I thought maybe weekend would be good for everyone if they really want to make time for it. I know during the week, different schedules and work is like an extra equation into the, an extra variable in the equation. I would invite everyone to share. Maybe I'll share a little poll on the Masterminding Eden chat. Dr. Brian, did you get into that chat finally? Did Chimera invite you to the Masterminding Eden chat?
On which channel?
It's on Telegram, I believe.
Not seen it on Telegram, but I'll look for it now.
Okay, we have a chat also in our Regen Tribe Telegram, which I think we shared last week. Yeah, can you share it again at the bottom of this? We're gonna share it right now at the bottom of the Zoom chat. I can share a poll in there to see, and I'll do it also in Masterminding Eden and in a few other groups that we're involved with to see. Anyone, I know Lori wanted to get involved with that, and a few of us as well had some awesome feedback last week as we extended the call a bit. I'd like to make a 1 hour, maybe hour and a half again, like this dedicated call to showing you guys how we're inventorying stuff as of now and how we plan on doing it in the next weeks. Also a call to arms. Anyone that has time that would want to help with that process will definitely be needing it. It's going to take much longer to process all of this than it is to, and less enjoyable, I think, than actually meeting all of you and getting to pick all your brains on this awesome stuff. You share the link? Okay, the link is in the Zoom chat. So please jump in there, you guys. We'll share a poll. Let us know what day is good for you guys. Maybe Wednesday or Thursday. If you have any answers to that, let me know now. If you could participate or are interested in participating in that journey, it'll be good learning for anyone that is interested in exploring more how we can process lots of data with LLMs. I'm definitely going to be picking your brain, Annabella, on processing all of the data that we're capturing, and maybe you have some great suggestions. I think, Lori, you're definitely open to learning and contributing in that. I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you. Thank you, Annabella. Cool. Make sure you join this. Here's the Telegram chat. It's here in the chat. I invite you guys all to join. Jump in there. Say hello. Let us know. Can you take a screenshot of this? This week I'm gonna ask for smiles. I'm gonna take a screenshot of everyone on the call. If you guys are up for it, give me a beautiful little smile here, so I can share this. I forgot to share this screenshot to show everyone the doers in the world. When everyone's thinking about how bad the world is getting, we're just here designing a new one. So kudos to all of you guys for being here. Smile. All right, awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Every week I'm more motivated, seeing consistency with faces showing up, sharing what they know and what they're doing, and new friends coming, bringing their things to the table. Please make your Tribes platform profile, join the Masterminding Eden group. We'll be sharing content through there as well as kind of our digital community board for updates and to engage more people on this journey. Does anyone have any closing thoughts they'd like to share or bring in?
I'm just wondering, last week we talked a little bit about using Signal, and I'm wondering if people need help with that or what that status is.
Okay, show of hand. Who in here has Signal on their phone, uses Signal, has used it before? Okay. So everyone's familiar, has used it. Beautiful. Yeah, I think it would definitely be worthwhile to launch you want to do a new one? Dr. Brian, do you maybe have a Signal you'd like to use for this? No, or should we start a fresh one?
We should start a fresh one. I'm just thinking that's a little better in terms of metadata handling than Telegram. And,
sure.
We can start it up, see how it works. And if it works well, I know that's a little easier to access for some than Telegram.
Okay, so I have that as a homework. I'm going to kick up a Signal channel and I'm going to share it with you guys on the Tribes platform. That'll be our secret, definitely data security aware channel. Yeah, good bring up. Yeah, does anyone have anything else they'd like to share as we end the call? Sarah, goodbyes. Close the circle, essentially.
If we do the large language model thing later in the day, that'll probably work a bit better for those of us in the
Later in the day,
Australian
right? For
time
you,
zone.
especially in Oz. Okay, cool. So yeah, that could be more of like an evening thing for us over here.
Sure.
Maybe like
Yeah.
end of workday, East Coast time. Maybe like
Yeah.
6 p.m. How does that
Works
feel?
great.
Maybe Thursday,
That's awesome.
5 to 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Cool. This will be the call where we now do the nitty gritty of taking all of this awesome stuff that's on the Miro board in the Tribes platform and any links you guys are sharing. And we start massaging that data into kind of the best way.
Right.
I've actually been considering building a little bit of like a web app, like like a very smart form where people
Yeah.
can upload a file, maybe select a category, and it does a bit of the massaging for us. Maybe we
Right.
can discuss what that process would look like manually, and then I can codify that into a little bit of a web app with like Replit or one of these Claude codes. That could be cool. Maybe that'll be the goal of that first call. So if anyone's
Yeah.
into wanting to listen in, learn about that process, doors wide open. The more of us that pick up these AI skills, the better for this collective specifically and for all of us as individuals. So happy to share time and go through that. Even if you have no experience, there's lots of ways you can help and lots that you can learn on this journey. Like everyone's a software developer now, pretty much.
Right. Right.
So
I'd also
that's pretty
like to
cool.
get people's thoughts on protected open source ecosystems, and in particular, do we want the large language models to have all of our, wisdom distilled from Miro into this, or is it something we want to be more protected about in terms of the regenerative communities? There are various approaches and tools. Abacus, for example, is affordable and precludes the use of our internal AI chats for training and for other purposes. So it's a nice way to get access all the frontier models without having the information leak to the big corporations.
Abacus, right. This is the one you mentioned last week.
I'm under an ontological impression that there is an ecosystem of artificial intelligence that already exists beyond the scope of what we would like already consider. So I think, a lot of people can't even relate to their local environment ecosystem, let alone maybe some people relate better with a synthetic and or silicon based.
Yeah, the digital gold is here.
Kind of like that's like a kind of a projection.
Yeah. Well, it's clear that abundance of labor will include AI and robotics. We just need to make sure that it's community friendly and that it's going to actually be working for the many and not just the few.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And that's where data sovereignty and voting with our feet on, the protected and protected open source ecosystem is about making this available for regenerative communities, not for big corporations necessarily. And so that's one reason we are looking at voting with our feet on our data. And I'm just beginning to realize how critical it is. I mean, data is the new oil, and we should decide who we're giving it to, and not necessarily the biggest corporations in the world.
And that's why I think there's like a philosophical thing with that. It's like to live the open source lifestyle would be to never hold property to intellectual property. You know what I mean? Like none of it's really mine. It's all a cup of sugar I borrowed before time began and forgot to return. So
I mean, you got to really make sure that this data is not getting shared, taken by someone else, and then used in someone else's AI. I mean, that would be ideal, but I don't know, and I know that's very difficult to do, but.
I think it's kind of like timestamp of just nature, though. Like as you are living in the experience, it's already in the wave. You know what I mean? So if anybody tries to like shadow that, it's not as like they're not the ones doing the critical experiential thinking, like the context of the time and space. Like it's only a modicum of like it's like living vicariously. We do that through the sciences and maths, but like and poetries and such, but like doing it is another thing entirely. And it's like if you don't know how to do it, it's just jumping into the water and going into the liminal zone of it.
Part of me thinks whatever these leading models are going to be in the future, at some point I project that they will become these like AI overlords, as they become better than humans at doing everything essentially. And so part of me thinks that by uploading this very conscious and positive intentioned knowledge to these AI overlords that'll some point have their own, process for doing things, that we're better off with them having our designs. Maybe it'll be a seed in the positive direction versus everything else that they're being fed through the news and through like general human behavior. I consider
like
us to be
restricting freedom of speech in a way,
yeah,
like so that the artificial intelligence can't learn, but that's like doing the same to any other human,
yeah. Well, this is what we're going to be diving into on this Thursday call around 5 p.m. EST, I'm thinking 5:30 EST. So if any of you are keen for that, I'll share some info about that. And again, thank you guys for joining. Happy Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for being in this movement. It's great to see you guys. Kenny, so good to see you, man. And happy weekend, guys. Jump into the groups. Add some more details onto your tribe's platform profile so we can all see each other a little bit more. Join the Masterminding Eden group so we can filter each other and find each other easier. And I'll see you guys soon. We'll chat soon.
Hey, Oscar, you got a few minutes?
Yeah. I'm going to stay on for a couple minutes if anyone wants to chat, but just wanted to close the container, honoring everyone's time. And if you have a hard stop time, thank you for being here. Yeah, I'm sticking around for a bit.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I think these sessions have been, and they are increasingly, I think, becoming the content is getting deeper and deeper. So I know you're starting to really gather a lot of detail, in terms of the mirror board, what have you. So far you had been, or your team has been involved in the scraping of the information and trying to compile it and start, do you, in terms of how we're building the plane while it's flying perspective? Okay. I just wanted to get your insight on, if I'm understanding the strategic approach, the notion of the framework and having a framework and building a framework, right? And then within the context of the framework are all these tactical components that go into building a regenerative community and stuff like that.
Sure.
And so, but all these things seem to be happening all at once.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way to you?
Definitely. So traditionally, the way we approach this journey of creating a community, we did it through like our conceptual step-by-step process so that we had a bit more of like a linear timeline. It's never totally linear, but if you guys don't mind, I'm going to share my screen one more time here. Here's, I think, this one. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going back to the Tribes platform because this is where we host it. But here in the catalyzer, right, how to accelerate the development of your regenerative neighborhood, we have it broken down in three categories, right? One is the hive, which is what we're doing now, which are the categories and subcategories. The other way that we approached this in previous calls was through what we call the alchemy guide, community alchemy. And we broke our journey from our consulting work that we've been doing over the last couple of years to guide people and learn from people who have built communities. We broke it into these 11 steps that you see here on this Google Doc. That is open source. You guys have full access to this. I'd love to guide you guys to this and explore it. And if you guys are into it, leave comments, interact with it. But we broke it down into these 11 steps, right? Step 0 is like, where are you now? Understanding where you are on your journey. Step 1 is honing your vision, defining your big why, your big how, and your what you're doing. Step 2, recruiting your ideal members. And so within each of these steps, right? Next step is group agreements and governance. So this one technically is human systems. Whereas the next one, business model and income sources and infrastructure needs, is more like economy and physical infrastructure. if we're comparing it to the categories that we're talking about. The next one, acquiring land, kind of falls into ecology, part of ecology and part of hardware. Identifying your funding needs, economy, right? Full on. Strategizing your marketing. This is more human systems. How are we encapsulating our idea and communicating it out with the world? Master planning sustainable systems and your neighborhood layout, hardware, ecological systems as well. Building your neighborhood, this also hardware strictly, right? We have subsections that guide you through the journey of understanding what you're designing, how you're designing it, different solutions that we've seen that are out there, different early stage housing solutions, and kind of helping people outline the journey that we've also gathered from lots of other projects and just compiled it as a resource gallery of resources that are out there. Right. Step 10 is activating community culture, also more the human systems category primarily, but also a lot of involvement with how the physical building affects the community. And then the last one is the review and manage your community as an ecosystem. This goes back to metrics and evaluation. So the categories feels a little bit abstract to me because it's so much and it can go across the whole spectrum of the timeline. Whereas maybe because of my way of thinking and the way I process things, it's easier for me to break it down into step by step. Our previous call series were like 13 calls, but each call was around each one of these steps. We've shared these on YouTube. We did also a Miro board for those kinds of calls. You guys are welcome to check them out on our YouTube channel. It's our Regen Tribe. But yeah, Kevin, you're totally right, man. It's like this call specifically, the ecology topic. It's like it's everything. Technically, literally, it's everything. It was hard for me to set up the board in a way that asked very direct questions while also leaving space for everyone to share their, tidbits of things. I think what I keep reminding myself is like, I'm not here to teach anyone anything. I'm just here to ask questions and harvest other questions and knowledge from everyone that's participating. And so far, you guys are like doing awesome. I'm like so pleased every time at the end of the calls with how it's going. And again, I'm so open to any.
We lost Oscar temporarily.
That energy's too high. I can't hold him in a Zoom call. He's flying, baby. I love it.
You might be right, Justin.
That's
there you
what
go. I love
happens.
the energy frequency, right?
You can't handle it. This technology can't hold it.
No doubt. Well, we just have to pick it up. Well, I'm looking forward to Thursday. See what's going on. Are you going to be able to? You going to be able to make it, Justin? You coming?
I'll be there. Yeah, that's a great
Thursday?
topic, the AI stuff, because I'm deep in it.
Yeah, I'll try to join as well. And it's great to see these living documents, and I'm hoping there's
incredible.
There's a chance to make suggestions to them as we go, so that they grow over time. So that'd be good.
I'm looking for. Is there a source of AI that is
Llama
less commercialized?
Open.
Exactly.
Well, Llama is you can disconnect the open source. Yeah.
Llama 4 has open source weights. And there's a lot of other ones.
Yeah, I think there are.
I think NVIDIA just released a driving it's a driving machine learning system that runs, of course, on NVIDIA chips, but it's a neural network, and I think they've open sourced the weights as well. From about 1,700 hours of driving, they showed some demos of it running. Awesome. And I think they want to get a bunch of big companies interested in doing that. It's like a 10 billion parameter model.
Interesting. Well, you gentlemen take care. It was a pleasure. And I look forward to
you as well.
continuing work.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good session today.
Absolutely. Dr.
Beautiful.
Brian, I'm checking out your stuff. I mean, I'm excited about the communities you're working on. That this is
Oh, well, feel free to ask
this
any questions. We literally have found Belbanya up around Noosa, and Narara is a community down near Sydney. And that's about 1,200 kilometers. And we've worked with Dave Holmgren, who's one of the fathers of permaculture.
I'm back.
And yeah, he's got a place down in Victoria called Meliadoria or something, and a couple of great books as well. One of them is Retro Suburbia, and there's two other books as well, and I've got them and I need to start reading them. So, yeah, great resource. I think there's a great overlap with permaculture and regenerative communities.
Beautiful.
Have you ever in your work, Dr. Brian, have you ever heard of a community called Arco Santi, which was
No, Arco Santi?
Arco Santi. It's located in Arizona, and this goes back to the late 60s, early 70s. An industrial engineer named Paolo Solari had designed it, and it was a completely regenerative. I mean, it was designed without using electricity. It's north of Phoenix, Arizona. It's about an hour's north. I mean, I've been there, and it used to have a community and stuff like that, and now it's graduate students go there and study different types of things. But Paulo Solari, so he's
Along those
predecessor.
lines, yeah, just last month we did a pilgrimage to Village Homes in Davis, California, and interviewed the founders. It's their 50th anniversary, and we're thrilled to uh, have that beginning of an understanding and seeing how has it evolved over 3 or 4 generations.
Yes.
And again, it's this wonderful food forest. The density is close to suburban density, and it's in a relatively, urban area, I would say. And the lessons of what we can learn, I mean, because they have
Yes.
a food forest that's amazing. I mean, fruit trees, gardens, orchards, vineyards, all in the same space. And it's a really amazing
Amazing.
community resource. And yet there have been ups and downs, largely influenced by our financial system, right? Because
Mm.
the ability of young families to move into such regen communities is limited by the price of land and the interest rate. And so there was boom and bust within the community because of these financing challenges. And so now only wealthy people can live there. And so,
Yeah.
now that we've got hot and cold running internet and we have the ability to live anywhere, I'm 10,000 kilometers away from my home country of the United States. Um, we've got the ability to choose to vote with our feet, choose where to make our intentional communities, and we can live in relatively rural environments and that have room for ecologically sustainable development. And that's our hope, is to develop that new model. I like to call it something like rural restart, but the idea is we've got a lot of people falling out of their mortgages in cities. And the question is, can their families move from that, mortgage situation to a regenerative community and be able to really be part of that transition?
It's almost
Yes.
and it's kind of strange to think of the concept of like cheaper homes, cheaper property to develop such like systems, like finding a local abandoned property in my local area and then trying to like develop what would naturally be there regardless, which is some of the processes are already done. Just something interesting.
Yeah. I've got a lot of colleagues who are taking out a big, second mortgage on their home because chances are you'll be paying them back in dollars that are worth less. And the question is now for financing. We're actually working to help regen communities here in Australia get financed because, of course, you can pay back in dollars that are worth less or worthless, depending on the case
Yeah.
of the future.
Yes.
All
Yes.
intents and purposes, yeah.
Yeah, de-dollarization is a thing. There's no doubt. Wow.
If the government's doing it, we better not get run over by a steamroller. So I think it's one of the tools. Maybe it's something we should add to the alchemy is actually, the finance is in there, right? We could add to that chapter. And I'm curious, is there a way we can make suggestions to that alchemy book? It looks wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to add some history sections and other bits. And I'm just wondering, is there a suggestion system within this tool set?
Yeah, definitely. It's a Google Doc right now because I think that's
Oh,
what
good.
most people have the
Good.
easiest access to, where they can
Yeah,
go into sections, make comments,
totally.
drop resources there.
Yeah,
We will definitely be giving this alchemy guide a second pass once we do
good.
this series of calls, on the economy section. I imagine we'll be harvesting
Wonderful.
a lot of really good resources. These will be the calls in
Yeah,
like 4 weeks from now. Mm,
that's great. Sounds good. Well, if there's a way to make suggestions as we go, I'd love to be able to add material and of course have the editors review it. But I think that's a nice resource that we could utilize.
yeah, totally. I think one of the best, I just got a message from Thomas. He was on the call and he was
Yeah.
saying how a more formal process, maybe if we can make like a form that makes it more clear for how people can share validated or more formal research papers, and how that could be a stronger kind of a pitch for like a sort of book that could come out of this, which
Yes.
is like putting that into my mind. I think a big goal for me this year was to reconnect with the community of people who are excited about this topic, working in this topic, and wanting to contribute. My intention was to set the barrier of entry so low that you could even just type it in on Miro or send it in a group chat. As you escalate the amount of work it takes to submit something, I realize we'll have a drop off from my experience, a drop off in the amount of people actually contributing stuff. And I think because at this point, I'm still having enough man hours to do some of that heavy lifting of, even if you just share a link, I can make the most of it with some deep research and a bit of like massaging myself. So I'm, kind of putting that question up to everyone here. How do you feel about that and all of that? But yeah, we'll keep exploring that as we keep going.
Well, this is great. Hey, Oscar, thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank each of you. I know we don't have as many. Did any of the ladies didn't stay on? I guess they left. But thank you to them too, wherever they are. And we will. I'll be looking forward. You're going to send out a global to the group in terms of Thursday, Oscar.
Yes. I'm going to send both in the Masterminding Eden chat and in the Regen Tribe chat. So whatever Telegram you're in, I'll also share the Signal thing in there, the Signal link for the group. I've never made a group in there, so I'm going to go through that.
Mm-hmm. And but primarily, we would like to do the Tribes platform as the primary.
Sure. Like the reality is, for like chatting and sending messages, I understand that whatever messenger you use is usually more effective because it's where you're at. Tribes platform is great. You can also send messages there. What I'm focused on mostly is for like uploading big PDFs, books, any kind of like, heavier resource that needs a bit of a database or like kind of drive concept in it to keep it also public and automatically organized. So that's kind of my, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. But hey, you all take care. This was great. I really appreciate you.
We'll chat soon.
Y'all have a great rest of your weekend.
Yeah. You too. Whoever just messaged the pay it forward concept, like definitely one of my values, principles that I live by, like we create a better world by doing it now and not waiting till the perfect moment, because there is never a perfect moment. With everything, I with animals, with people, my, let's say, metaphysical understanding is we are all threads of the same entity. So technically we're all each other. So like, what would be, if I'm you, which technically I am in my understanding, what would be the most lovely thing that this person can do for me in your shoes? And that's kind of my like operating process at this point. So pay it forward is like an easy way to understand that. Yeah.
That's huge. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, and we wouldn't be where we are today without that great boost.
Yeah. Well, you guys, I'm grateful for you guys. I'm going to jump off. I'll be sending messages so we can coordinate the AI chat. Man, just beautiful to see other humans, right? The mirrors in this universe. I'm grateful for the screen and for all of you guys.
Likewise, when you're sending messages, what channels do you use most for those messages?
I'm going to send them on the Telegram for Regen Tribe. I'm going to send it in the Telegram for Masterminding Eden to coordinate the Thursday call.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to be better about sharing maybe daily updates of what we're going to be
Okay.
doing, organizing the
Yeah.
data. So it'll be between the 2 telegrams and then that signal that we're going to start.
Can you take the chat and Thomas was very nice to create a signal group that looks like it's going to be suitable with a
Oh,
link.
awesome.
And
Thanks,
so
Thomas.
if
Great.
you propagate that to Telegram, that will enable the signal to get going. Already joined.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know where that chat
But
is. Maybe Thomas, you can invite me, send me a.
yeah, I shared it here in the
39.
chat. I'm sharing it again. There's also
Yeah.
a Telegram group of the same. So I'm sharing it all again. It's also in Discord and others. This is actually our potentialism group.
Okay,
But
awesome.
everybody can join.
An existing one. That's wonderful.
Yes.
So maybe that would
So
be
I shared it
maybe we
again
should
in
just
the channel.
join that one, huh?
Yes. And you can
tell us
share it
about
on
the history
Telegram.
and the context, but that's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah,
Here
that'd
it
be
is.
great.
Yes. So I shared it
That's
again.
great. New community. Okay, why not? I think the
All right.
more the
Awesome,
better.
Thomas. Thank you for being an early mover on that.
And I cross share
Yeah.
some content.
Oh yeah, and you're on all these different platforms. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you, Thomas. Very
You're
good.
welcome.
I'll look forward to joining those and seeing you there.
All
Yeah.
right.
So
Love you guys. So yeah, that'll be the signal then. We're gonna use Thomas's.
Good.
Thomas, thank you
That
for
works
creating
great.
a Clubhouse for us.
yes, you can. You can also start your Signal. However, not so many people are on Signal, so it's
Right.
it's a small community.
It'll be us
Right.
to kick off. All good.
Okay. Sounds good.
Some of us have to pioneer. You know, it's us, you guys. All
That's awesome.
right, guys. We'll chat soon.
Until next time.
Yeah,
Enjoy.
thank you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
weekend. Bye.
Thanks you too. Bye bye.